This video is sponsored by Card Kingdom. You can visit their store by using my referral link in the description below. Hi everyone, I'm Nitsa Hone, and today is Wednesday, and that means it's time for the 48th edition of Deck History. In this series, I look at prominent Magic deck archetypes from their origins to the current day. Most episodes of this series look at decks with long histories that span years in various formats. For example, last week we looked at mono-green Stompy decks. But sometimes I also like to zoom in on short-lived decks that were so busted that they got banned out of existence quickly. And that's what we're doing today with a look at the Extended Academy Combo deck. As usual, my viewers voted on the topic for this video, and the Academy Combo deck beat out the Alurin Combo deck. If you want to have a say in the topic of the next episode in this series, check out the Community tab where you'll find a poll. Academy decks are built around the utterly broken land Tolarian Academy, which can tap to add 1 blue mana for each artifact you control. While the card was played and abused in Urza's Block Constructed, the only true Academy Combo deck was an Extended. And it was so busted that it was banned out of existence, in multiple formats, after a single event. It looked to repeatedly untap the Academy with a bunch of artifacts in play for pretty much limitless mana. This deck was only played at 1998's Pro Tour Rome, the first event of Combo Winter, a period from 1998 into 1999 where combo decks dominated pretty much all of Magic's formats, largely as a result of cards from Urza's Block. In the past, we've looked at the Broken Jar deck from 1999, which occurred later on during Combo Winter. The Academy deck was one of the decks that started it all. 2 Academy combo decks top-8'd that Pro Tour, including Tommy Hovey's, which won the entire event. You might remember Tommy's name from this series because he was also the pilot of Magic's very first Prison deck, which was his Stasis deck that top-8'd Worlds in 1996. Now we're catching up with Tommy a couple of years later with another historically significant Magic deck. So let's dive right in with a look at his Pro Tour winning deck. As is usually the case when we zoom in on a single deck, we're going to go pretty deep uncovering the deck's contents. Of course, at the deck's core is Tolarian Academy. The deck's main way to untap the Academy was Mind Over Matter, which allows you to discard a card to untap any artifact, creature, or land. As long as you keep drawing cards to fuel Mind Over Matter, you can keep untapping the Academy, which will give you massive amounts of mana. One of the ways to draw cards, and the deck's main win condition, was Stroke of Genius, which you could use to draw more cards for yourself, or you could target your opponent and make them draw their entire library. As is usually the case for a combo deck, everything else in the deck is about finding the combo pieces, protecting the combo, or accelerating it. Let's start with the cards that were used to find the combo. Tommy's deck used Intuition as a tutor. Even though your opponent got to choose which card you could get, you could grab 3 copies of the same card, so it wasn't too hard to find what you needed. The deck also ran a bunch of card draw, in particular Windfall, Time Spiral, and Scroll Rack. Windfall could dig you deep into your deck while throwing away things you didn't need, and it could even disrupt the opponent. Time Spiral made both players shuffle their hand and graveyard into their library and draw 7 cards. It also allowed you to untap 6 lands, effectively making it free for you. Plus, it even gave you a chance to untap your Academy, so usually it netted you mana, and you had a new grip of cards to spend all that mana on, which often just allowed you to combo off on the spot. Scroll Rack could allow you to dig much deeper into your deck by basically allowing you to exchange cards in your hand for cards on top of your library. It was particularly nuts that it's a repeatable effect. The deck could even use its Voltaic Keys to use it more than once in a turn. The deck also needed some ways to accelerate mana. After all, Mind Over Matter was part of the combo and it costs a whopping 6 mana. If you wanted to combo off with a card like that, you needed to get there a lot earlier than turn 6, otherwise you would get crushed. Obviously, this could just be accomplished by getting several artifacts in play alongside your Academy, but the deck also ran lots of ways to accelerate mana, most of which also happened to be artifacts. This included Lotus Petal, Mana Vault, and Mox Diamond. The Petal was a 0 mana artifact that could be sacrificed for 1 mana of any color. The Vault was a 1 mana artifact that could tap for 3 mana, and sure, it took some work to untap it, but the deck did run Voltaic Key, which could help you get around that problem. The Diamond was a 0 mana artifact that that required you to discard a land from your hand, but if you did, it could tap for 1 mana of any color. The deck also used Ancient Tomb, which isn't quite as good as Tolarian Academy, but it's a pretty great land that taps for 2 mana. You can see how these powerful artifacts and lands could allow you to quickly get Mind Over Matter in play and go off. The remaining cards in the deck are there to protect the combo, and those cards are Abeyance and Power Sink. Abeyance allowed you to make your opponent unable to cast instants and sorceries for a whole turn, and it even drew you a card. Power Sink could allow you to counter anything your opponent might use to interact with you when you were going off, and both of these were also useful against other combo decks in the format, whether you were playing the Mirror or against High Tide. So that's the version of the deck that won the whole event, but I also want to take a look at the other Academy combo deck that top-8'd the event in the hands of Eric Lauer. Many of the game's pundits at the time actually considered Lauer's version of the deck superior, even though he didn't win the entire event. As you can see, at its core, it isn't that different. Obviously, the combo is the same. The biggest difference was its use of Vampiric Tutor over Intuition. The Tutor doesn't put the card in your hand, but it does allow you to search for any card and put it on top of your library. This means you don't have to run multiple copies of Mind Over Matter or Stroke of Genius, and that's a good thing, because extra copies of those cards were usually useless. This really made Lauer's version of the deck significantly more streamlined, eliminating pretty much all dead draws. He also used Wasteland, which is of course good against other Academy decks. As I alluded to earlier, the events of Pro Tour Rome kicked off Combo Winter, a period marred by utterly busted combo decks dominating all of Magic's formats. 1998 and 1999 witnessed a mountain of bans and restrictions as a result, something that I have covered in depth in my history of the banned and restricted lists, but for us in the video today, it's useful to note just how much of the Academy combo deck got banned in their attempt to hamper combo decks, including Academy decks and others. This shows you just how busted this deck is. The first extended bans of Combo Winter were Tolarian Academy and Windfall, but over the next several months, Lotus Petal, Mind Over Matter, Mana Vault, and Time Spiral also got banned out of Extended. Looking at other formats, Vampiric Tutor, Stroke of Genius, Voltaic Key, and Mox Diamond also got the ban hammer, as Wizards of the Coast desperately tried to put an end to Combo Winter. All of that brought an end to one of Magic's most broken decks ever. Tolarian Academy itself was ultimately banned out of every one of Magic's formats except Vintage, where it's restricted, meaning you can have a single copy of the card in your deck. To this day, it is heavily played in Vintage, as most decks in the format run a bunch of artifacts, and it allows those decks to make a lot of mana early. While the Extended Academy combo deck doesn't reach the same levels of absurdity as the broken Jar deck from later on in Combo Winter, it is still one of the most broken decks in the history of Magic, and it, along with High Tide, kicked off a period in Magic history that itself is noted for the sheer number of busted decks. That gives it a very important place in the history of Magic. So that's the history of the Extended Academy combo deck. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so that others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future episodes of this series, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you want to catch up on past episodes of this series, including many more about combo decks and busted decks that got banned really quickly, you should see some playlists on your screen shortly. Thanks for watching.